Lauryn Hill is one of the most singular voices in the history of hip-hop, R&B, and soul. Before the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, she had already built 3 careers. At 13, she walked onto the Apollo stage, sang Who Is Lovin' You, got booed, steadied herself, and won the crowd over. At 18, as Rita in Sister Act 2, she carried scenes and performed like a veteran. With the Fugees, her mix of dope raps and soaring vocals powered the score into one of the most successful albums of the 90s. Then came her solo debut, 5 Grammys, a new blueprint for hip-hop and R&B, and a place in music's Hall of Fame. In episode 2, we learned how Nas recreates an exterior world in Illmatic, Queensbridge. In this video, I want to find out how the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill recreates an inner world. World building in hip-hop exists on a spectrum between externally grounded and internally grounded modes. A mode is a project's operating rules, how it claims truth, organizes time and space, selects evidence, and positions the listener. On the externally grounded end, the world is established through place, codes, and has a documentary-type texture. Locations are being named. There's an observable reality, and the voice that guides you through this world feels like an eyewitness. The world feels real. One of the fundamental differences between Nas Illmatic and the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a shift in world-building modes. Nas Illmatic is externally grounded. We walk the streets of this block, look out the window of Nas' apartment, and sit in its stairways. Nas Illmatic is a sonic map of Queensbridge and is a perfect example for an album that is externally grounded. The album builds outward first, the block, hallways, rooms. The genesis opens with chatter and train noise. What you hear is the actual environment. New York State of Mind moves from corner to hallway, step by step. One Love writes letters into prison. Courts and cells become scenery. Memory lane and the world is yours use benches, windows as emotionally charged spaces and lenses we look through at this world. References to the real world like Scarface, Al Capone, or the use of soul and jazz samples throughout the album are also elements of an externally grounded world. On the internally grounded end, reality is established through interiority, values, and spiritual commitment. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a classroom of the self. Diary pages, spiritual questioning, heartbreak, and growth taught as lessons. The classroom setting of the album is crucial as it suggests inquiry, reflection, and revision. The album explores truth through self-examination and value testing. The framing skits ask, "What is love?" and each song presents evidence from interior life in return. However, this spectrum is not a rigid binary. Illmatic also reflects Nas' inner landscape, his dreams, paranoia, and the psychological cost of surviving his environment. Likewise, Miseducation includes references to the outside world, relationships, social critique, and communal Black experience. Still, what distinguishes them is how the listener enters into those worlds. Nas brings us in through the block, Lauryn through her heart. In Illmatic, a location or spaces trigger an event, while in the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, emotions trigger decisions. Both albums remain powerful touchstones because they anchor on opposite poles of hip-hop's narrative compass, one starting from place, the other one from feeling. Nas Illmatic and the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill both share one specific aspect: their focus on one location, one limited space throughout their albums. Instead of shaping her world through streets and corners, Lauryn Hill builds it through emotion, introspection, and the search for identity. So a question we asked in episode 1, like what does this world look like, misses the point. We have to ask the question, what emotions structure her world? Now, when I ask what emotions structure her world, I treat emotions as if they were rooms. And Lauryn Hill enters these rooms, revisits them, and in some cases, she also transforms them. In the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, every song is an expression of Lauryn Hill's inner struggle or contemplation with a specific emotion. Each song feels like a room within a larger emotional architecture. If we take a look at the first 8 tracks of the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, A wide range of emotions are being presented. The feelings that are highlighted yellow are more negative feelings, from anger and betrayal to strength and confidence. It's fair to say that there's a transition or growth Lauryn goes through. We hear this on the second part of the album, where her state of mind is one that has learned from mistakes, is confident and much clearer. Each track is a room in her inner classroom. She investigates a specific emotional state, extracts a lesson, and adds it to a coherent moral emotional framework. The classroom skits bind these rooms into a single campus. Love is the curriculum, emotions are the structure, and learning is the plot. But let's start at the beginning. After you press play, the first thing you hear is a school bell and students talking in the hallway of a school. Similarly to Illmatic, the soundscape transports the listener to where the story is happening, a classroom. The first voice we hear is from a teacher asking for the students' names until he asks for Lauryn Hill. But our main protagonist is absent.
Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill.
The teacher's voice belongs to the son of famous American poet Amiri Baraka, Ras Baraka, who today is the mayor of Newark. We will hear this voice on several skits on the album. More on that later. Track 2, Lost Ones, is a banger. Heavy boom-bap drums, Lauryn's impeccable flow, and his singing makes this one of my favorite tracks of the album. What's interesting about this track is, while it doesn't say any names, this entire track is directed at rapper, producer, and former Fugees member Wyclef Jean. Wyclef and Lauryn went through a pretty bad breakup while the two were members of the Fugees. The group itself ended up breaking things off, and Hill was looking to express her feelings about it all on record. And Lauryn doesn't hold back when she says,
"A groupie call you far from temptation. Now you want ball over separation. Tarnish my image in the conversation. Who you gonna scrimmage like you the champion? You might win some, but you just lost one. You might win some, but you just lost one. You might win."
Lost Ones introduces emotions like betrayal and anger, but Lauryn also feels empowered and strong on this track. This ambivalence of emotions will come up throughout the album again and again. On track 3, X Factor, Lauryn examines conflicting emotions. She moves from blame to bargaining to sober recognition. By naming the contradiction, wanting love and being harmed by it, she shifts from confusion to clear judgment. This track's lesson is identify the toxic pattern, accept the truth, and reclaim self-respect. The title encodes the problem. X Factor is a pun. The lover who becomes an X, the algebraic mathematic X, this unknown variable that keeps breaking the equation. The paired images, simple, hard, love, battle, compress the core paradox and set the emotional stakes.
Loving you is like a battle. It's like a battle.
On the surface, it's a breakup song. But the depth of emotion between vulnerability and strength turns it into something more. The song becomes a space or room of heartbreak. She wants to leave, but love keeps pulling her in. This room, in Lauryn's inner school, teaches emotional literacy. You don't heal by feeling less. You heal by naming precisely what is missing, by naming what you need, acknowledging the cycle, and letting truth set the boundaries. But ultimately, it is acceptance that opens the door to all the other rooms. In track 3, To Zion, Lauryn turns a private moral decision into a public hymn. By choosing motherhood against industry advice, she reorders her value system. Love and faith become the governing law over status and fear. The song models how joy can reorganize an inner world. She sets up the tension between external pressure and internal conviction when she says,
"Look at your career, they say. Lauryn, baby, use your head. But instead I chose to use my heart."
The turning point arrives for her when she treats faith or intuition as a higher authority than market logic. The chorus,
"Now the joy of my world is in Zion,"
declares a new center of gravity. Joy, love, and responsibility outrank fame, success, and money. This room teaches the importance of recentering one's values. When joy and maternal love become first principles, they reorganize every other emotion. Fear decreases, gratitude increases, and courage steadies.
For me now, I'm learning that it's more important to be righteous than to be right. I've tried to be right. This is right. This is an injustice. This is a travesty. I'm right. But I've been very unrighteous and still right. Oh my God, because you can attack someone completely right, but it doesn't resolve anything.
In the architecture of the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, To Zion is like a sanctuary. It defines purpose and becomes the reference point for the rest of the album's lessons. In track number 4, Doo Wop, That Thing, Lauryn delivers a public service lesson in self-respect. By addressing women and men, she links personal desire to ethical discipline. If you want to win, align behavior with values. Be right within, so vanity and games can't run your life. Verse 1 speaks to women. Verse 2 to men. The hook flips from girls watch out to guys watch out. The symmetry frames caution as communal, as shared responsibility. This room in Lauryn's inner school is civics of the heart. She links emotional safety to ethical practice. Confidence becomes self-governance. Pride is earned through aligned choices. Empowerment means guarding your spirit so that thing, lust, vanity, and clout, can't set the rules. In this album's architecture, Doo Wop is like a public square where private feelings meet shared standards or values. I want to focus on 2 more songs on the album. On Everything is Everything, Lauryn ties personal healing to communal healing. Healing yourself is inseparable from pushing the world and your community forward. The seasonal hook, After Winter Must Come Spring, turns hope into a principle of motion. Now, the lesson here is to keep moving, to make changes both inward and outward. The hook's chain, Everything is Everything. What is meant to be will be. After winter must come spring. Change, it comes eventually. Frames renewal as a built-in law. It feels like the emotional revolution of her journey. Lauryn's tone shifts. It's more composed and outward-facing. She moves from personal heartbreak to collective healing. She turns toward purpose with resilience as the foundation. While Lauryn is trapped inside a relationship in X Factor, in Everything is Everything, she zooms out. The camera widens and she steps outside. While X Factor is the internal storm, Everything is Everything is like a clearing sky. The last track on the album is a lesson in self-education. She examines the false lessons she has absorbed, locates an inner authority, and integrates love, faith, and a sense of boundary into a coherent self. Boundaries from lost ones, reciprocity from X Factor, sanctified purpose from To Zion, civic ethics and morals from Doo Wop, all reappear as a unified code. This is the hallway that connects every other room in this architecture that Miseducation builds. Carter G. Woodson was an American historian, journalist, and the reason why Black History Month exists in the US today. He was born almost 10 years after slavery was legally abolished in the USA in 1875 and lived until 1950. Woodson was the son of former enslaved people in Virginia and had to put off schooling while he worked in coal mines. Noting widespread erasure and distortion of black roles in American and other histories, Woodson made research on African American history a priority. In 1916, Woodson published what is today known as the Journal of African American History. You have to remember that this was an era of extreme white supremacist terror. In 1919, the so-called Red Summer unleashed in more than 30 different cities across the United States. From May to September 1919, approximately 1,000 people were killed. Most of them were black. In 1921, one of the worst incidents of white supremacist violence occurred during the Tulsa Massacre, when mobs of white residents, some of whom had been appointed as deputies and armed city government officials, attacked black residents and destroyed homes and businesses. It's no coincidence that during a time when we see the rise of black self-consciousness in the 1920s expressed by movements such as the Harlem Renaissance and the rise of political activist Marcus Garvey, that white America unleashed its terror on black communities starting to thrive as free men. This was the climate in which Carter G. Woodson lived and became one of the most important African-American leaders. Woodson is important for this video because one of his books became the inspiration for Lauryn Hill's album title. In 1933, Carter G. Woodson published his Miseducation and asks the question, who gets to decide what and how black people learn? In 1998, Lauryn Hill names her debut after his book and turns the question inward. What did we learn about love, worth, and self? And what do we need to unlearn? I want to find out in this chapter of the video what these two works have in common and why Lauryn Hill decided to name her album after Woodson's work. After emancipation, the Freedmen's Bureau helped establish schools for formerly enslaved people, but the country split over what kind of education they should receive. By emancipation, I mean the legal end of slavery in the US. The Civil War ends in 1865 and the 13th Amendment, ratified on December 6, 1865, abolishes slavery legally nationwide. In that moment, Congress creates the Freedmen's Bureau, formerly the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands inside the War Department. Its mission was to help 4 million newly freed people transition to freedom, to provide legal aid, labor contracts, to build hospitals, taking care of family reunifications, and to build schools. Bureau agents, black communities, and Northern aid societies built thousands of classrooms and started to train teachers. These new classrooms sparked a fight over what kind of education freedom requires. What subjects should be taught? What kind of knowledge is necessary to maintain peace in a United States that had just fought a civil war? One side argued for a classical, liberal curriculum: reading, writing, math, history, languages, science, philosophy, and religion. The goal? Full citizenship, leadership, and the intellectual tools to participate in public life. Another side pushed an industrial or vocational track: agriculture, trades, domestic skills, manual training, and strict discipline. Their goal? Immediate jobs and economic stability. Sociologist, historian, and Pan-Africanist W.E.B. DuBois argues in The Souls of Black Folk that the Bureau's school network was a triumph of black self-organization, while stressing its short life, political hostility, and chronic underfunding. The debate over what to teach freed people continued, and decades later it reappeared in sharper form with educator, author, and orator Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. DuBois. Booker T. Washington believed that by providing needed skills to society, African Americans would play their part, leading to acceptance by white Americans. The problem with Booker T. Washington's argument was that he accepted segregation and black disenfranchisement in exchange for job opportunities and white philanthropic support. He prioritized farming, trades, and domestic work and de-emphasized the liberal arts, law, and advanced science, therefore not promoting black leadership, development, and ambition. DuBois criticized Booker T. Washington for his positions, and he promoted the creation of a leadership class trained in the liberal arts, science, and law. He called this the talented 10th. The idea was to educate the most capable to a really high standard, so they can lift institutions and fight for their own rights. Critics said the model favored a college-educated minority and risked a class gap with the working majority. DuBois wanted to train citizens and leaders. Opponents feared that this would result in the creation of an elite without a working class base. Enter Carter G. Woodson. He stands somewhere in the middle in this debate. He argues for education that develops black talent, teaches accurate history, and serves black communities. What's important here is that he critiques any model that trains compliance or self-contempt instead of independence and dignity. Woodson's core claim is, when a people's past is distorted, their future is narrowed. A curriculum that elevates Europe while erasing Africa shapes ambitions, careers, and civic life. Access to opportunity and the ability to build families, businesses, and institutions track directly to what schools teach and value. Now, Lauryn Hill picks up that line. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a corrective syllabus about love, faith, motherhood, artistry, and identity. asking the listener to critically analyze what you've learned in the school of life. The classroom skits frame a lesson plan. The songs test what she's been taught by family, church, industry, and culture. Where Woodson diagnosed structural miseducation, Hill stages personal re-education. Both projects ask, who authored your lessons? Who benefits from them? And what would learning look like if it was designed for your personal flourishing? The album opens and closes with students in a classroom discussing love and gender stereotypes. The classroom becomes a symbolic space where love, heartbreak, and self-discovery are explored. But what makes this album especially compelling is that Lauryn, the student we are expecting to hear from, is never present in this classroom. Why is she absent? What does it mean that she is not attending her lessons? Her absence means that the real lessons aren't happening inside that classroom. They're happening out in the world. And the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is where she shares what she's learned or unlearned. But there's more. Her absence is also a refusal of school as a final authority. This aligns with Woodson's thesis. Miseducation is the process that separates you from your history, your values, and teaches you to chase someone else's metrics. There are a lot of similarities between Lauryn Hill's and Woodson's writing. In some sense, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill puts Woodson's writing into practice. So let's take a look at some of these similarities. Woodson argues that when institutions control what you learn, they shape how you see yourself and your possibilities. His infamous line, "If you can't control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions," diagnoses internalized limits as the product of miseducation. Similarly, songs like Lost Ones and Superstar reject labels and roles assigned by gatekeepers, like industry, media, and peers. The classroom interludes ask kids, not experts, to define love. Both argue that authority must shift from outside institutions to the learner and community. According to Woodson, educators must teach truth from the community outward. Start with accurate Black history, use teachers rooted in the people they serve, and measure education by what it empowers students to do in real life. In the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, every ghetto, every city preserves neighborhood memory. Doo Wop, that thing, turns church, block, and barbershop call and response into moral instruction. Forgive Them Father draws on biblical language and reggae lineage to ground ethics in the diaspora. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill aligns with what Woodson asks, to teach truth from the community outward. Woodson's critique shows up everywhere once you look for it. First and foremost, I would mention one of my heroes, W.E.B. DuBois, The Souls of Black Folks, where he also argues in favor of reclaiming self-determination. Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Mask similarly criticizes colonial schooling and shaped the idea of decolonization of the mind. He analyzed how colonialism invades consciousness and argued decolonization must transform both land and mind. James Baldwin's essay, A Talk to Teachers, is a critique of the education system, as he criticizes the reproduction of myths by educators and teachers and the need for teachers to tell the truth about history. Angela Davis' Freedom is a Constant Struggle, where Davis shows how official narratives erase radical histories, individualize problems, and normalize mass incarceration. There are also a ton of movies that touch on the same subject as Woodson and The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and maybe you have already watched some of those. Spike Lee, legendary director and actor, continued this school of thought in his 1988 movie School Days, where he explores similar concept of miseducation and re-education mechanisms. John Singleton, better known for his movie Boys in the Hood, directed Higher Learning in 1995, where he depicts a college campus as a battleground of ideologies and asks similar questions as Lauryn Hill and Woodson. Who teaches whom? Who belongs? Who gets policed? Justin Simeon's Dear White People from 2014 is a comedy drama television series on Netflix that follows several Black college students at an Ivy League institution and touches on issues surrounding modern American race relations. Then there's the rich history of African American music that has also expressed same ideas as Woodson. Nina Simone's To Be Young, Gifted and Black, Jill Scott Heron's The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, The Last Poets, When the Revolution Comes, Nas, I Can, who gives a counter narrative about black people and their history and advocates for empowerment and agency for youth, and finally also Dead Press, Day Schools, which is an indictment of US schooling and self-determined learning. Now we have watched the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill turn lived experience into a course of study. We've seen how unlearning and re-educating can lead to freedom. In the next episode, we take a trip to Compton, California. Alright, so that's it. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. See you next time. Peace.